Imagine handing over $68 million to buy free books for toddlers, right?
Right.
Only to discover the government built a brand new organization from scratch and then somehow lost the receipts for over $500,000.
I mean, it immediately makes you sit up and pay attention. You just wonder how a totally simple, universally loved idea gets so off track.
Welcome to the deep dive. Over the past week, a massive controversy just exploded in California's state government.
It really did. Lawmakers are demanding answers right now.
Exactly. They want answers from the state's top librarian, Greg Lucas, about roughly $650,000 in missing taxpayer funds.
And the wild part is, this money was strictly tied to a beloved children's literacy program, the one created by country music legend Dolly Parton.
Yeah, so instead of a feel-good story about kids learning to read, we are watching tense budget hearings. We are fielding accusations of missing bank statements and looking at a suddenly dissolved nonprofit organization.
So to get to the bottom of this for you today, we pulled from a stack of sources that cover every angle.
We did. We reviewed official California Senate budget agendas and the actual video transcripts of the legislative hearings.
Plus, we looked at news reports from across the political spectrum, including Politico, Breitbart, and the California Globe.
And because this story is blowing up and getting highly political, our promise to you today is simple. We are ignoring the partisan noise.
Right, we're not taking sides here.
Not at all. And we are not endorsing any accusations thrown around in these reports. Our mission for this deep dive is just to follow the facts, do the math, and figure out exactly how this massive literacy project derailed.
It really serves as a fascinating case study. It shows how public policy translates, or, well, entirely fails to translate into real-world action.
Yeah, let's rewind to the original goal back in 2022.
Right. California lawmakers approved a $68.2 million investment. The goal was to take Dolly Parton's Imagination Library and expand it statewide.
And for anyone listening who hasn't encountered the Imagination Library, the concept is incredibly straightforward.
But incredibly powerful.
Exactly. Enrolled children receive a free, high-quality book in the mail every single month, from the day they are born until they turn 5 years old.
And the Dollywood Foundation already successfully runs this program across 5 different countries. I mean, they have the supply chains, the logistics, the experience. It is all completely locked down.
So California looked at that track record and wanted it for their own residents.
They set massive, ambitious goals. They aimed to enroll roughly 2 million children under the age of 5 within 5 years.
Wow, 2 million.
Yeah, that represents about 65% of all eligible kids in the entire state. Plus, they wanted to make history by providing the nation's first fully bilingual English and Spanish option.
Which is great. It was a universally supported bipartisan effort.
Absolutely. The legislature provided the funding and directed the California State Library to partner with a nonprofit to get those books out to the kids.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that sounds like a foolproof plan. You have a proven global charity, you have the funding, and you have a clear mandate.
You think so?
But instead of directly partnering with the established Dollywood Foundation, the actual experts who invented the program, the California State Library drastically changed the strategy.
They really did. State Librarian Greg Lucas basically bypassed the Dollywood Foundation entirely.
He sidelined the existing infrastructure.
Yep. Instead of letting the experts do what they do best, the State Library created a brand new, completely unauthorized nonprofit. They called it the Strong Reader Partnership.
Wait, so they had the Dollywood Foundation ready to go, and they decided to build a new organization from the ground up.
That is exactly what they did.
That feels like hiring a world-famous chef to cater your wedding, right? But the venue insists on building a brand new kitchen in the parking lot and cooking the food themselves.
It made zero operational sense.
Why reinvent the wheel when the experts are standing right there?
Well, lawmakers hammered on that exact question during the recent budget hearings. Lucas defended his actions by pointing to his interpretation of the state legislation.
What did he claim?
He believed the law actually required the creation of a specific state entity to administer the program locally. Like he was simply following a mandate.
Did the text of the law actually mandate that?
According to the legislators who wrote the bill, absolutely not. They vehemently rejected his defense during the hearings.
I bet they did.
Yeah, they pointed out the law simply directed the library to, quote, coordinate with a nonprofit entity. It never said build and fund a new one from scratch.
The intent was clearly to partner with the experts, not build a redundant layer of bureaucracy.
Exactly.
Well, let's follow the money here, because the math is where this pivot goes from confusing to deeply concerning. Lawmakers originally allowed up to 10% of the total budget to be used for administrative costs.
Which equals about $6.8 million.
Right.
And a 10% cap is just a standard safeguard. It ensures the vast majority of the public funding actually buys books for the kids,
Instead of paying for office space and salaries. So in late 2024, the state library signed a $19.2 million contract with this newly created Strong Reader Partnership.
and they handed them $4.8 million right away.
Just handed it over. And what happened next is a textbook example of why financial oversight matters so much.
Oh, yeah. Once the nonprofit secured that initial $4.8 million, they shifted $4 million of it directly into a money market account.
Wait, so instead of buying books, they took millions in taxpayer cash and just parked it in an interest-bearing account.
They did. And that move generated about $132,000 in interest.
Wow. But the real issue is what happened to the rest of the money they supposedly spent.
Right. The Strong Reader Partnership claimed they spent about $1.2 million running the program.
However, when legislative staff reviewed the actual bank statements, they could only verify $555,871 in actual expenses.
So doing the math on those figures leaves a glaring discrepancy. There is a gap of roughly $650,000 completely unaccounted for.
Roughly $650,000.
Yeah. No receipts, no invoices, no clear record of where that public money went.
Okay, hold on. Let's play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure.
State government moves at the speed of molasses on a good day. Bureaucratic reporting is notoriously slow. Is it entirely possible the money isn't actually missing, but the paperwork is just lagging behind the actual spending?
Like a severe administrative lag.
Yeah, rather than something more malicious.
What's fascinating here is the timeline tells a very different story. This was not a one-time clerical error. Senate staff formally requested these financial records 6 different times.
6 times.
6 times between November 2025 and February 2026. They asked for receipts, invoices, bank statements.
And over several months, the state library still produced nothing to explain the missing money.
Nothing that closed the gap. And the closer you look at the sources, the more concerning the structural issues become.
How so?
Well, corporate records reveal this new nonprofit had incredibly close ties to the state library itself. One official filing even listed a deputy state librarian as the agent for the organization.
Let me make sure I'm following this. The state library created a nonprofit, funded it with millions in tax dollars, and then had their own staff listed on its corporate filings.
Yep.
That looks like a massive conflict of interest.
It raised immediate red flags. And the conflict deepens when you look at how the funds were actually distributed.
Oh, boy.
Documents show that the nonprofit's executive director paid their own private Sacramento consulting firm over $208,000 using the program's funds.
Wait. The head of the nonprofit hired their own private company to do the work.
Yes.
And paid themselves with taxpayer money meant for children's books.
The committee records indicate exactly that.
Unbelievable.
So this pattern, endless delays, 6 ignored requests for receipts, and insider consulting contracts, it pushed lawmakers past the breaking point.
Which brings us to a deeply uncomfortable showdown in Sacramento. Picture the scene at the Senate Budget and Fiscal Review Subcommittee hearing.
It was intense. State Senators Shannon Groves and Sasha Renee Perez aggressively questioned Greg Lucas.
This was not a polite, routine budget update. The tension in the room was palpable.
The lawmakers were completely exasperated. They were looking at a program supposed to be a massive win for California children, and instead staring at a financial black hole.
Senator Grove did not mince words. She looked directly at Lucas and asked, "Where's the money?"
She was very blunt.
She went on to state that the missing documentation, quote, reeks of horrific no transparency and potential fraud.
Those are incredibly heavy words to use in an official state budget hearing.
Absolutely. You do not throw around the word fraud unless you are seriously concerned about the integrity of the operation.
Well, Lucas attempted to defend his agency during all this. He stated that the state library was actively trying to get the records,
finding out your
but they
electric
faced
bill
significant
is
hurdles.
secretly
And what was
funding
his
the
primary
government's
excuse?
massive spending
His
addiction.
excuse revealed another
It is a pretty
chaotic
shocking
layer to this
realization when you
story.
actually look at the math.
He said the Strong
Right.
Reader
Well,
Partnership
imagine
had
for a second
officially
that
been
you
shut
have a
down
savings
back in
account.
September 2025.
And
So the organization managing
swore to your
millions of
family,
dollars doesn't
hand over
even
heart,
exist anymore.
Right.
that
If
this
there are
money
no
was
staff
strictly
and no
for fixing a
office, who
leaking
is
roof.
answering the phone to
You
provide
said,
the receipts?
If we
That is
don't
the
fix this
exact
roof,
logistical
the
nightmare
house
the
is
state
going to
created
collapse.
for itself.
It's an
But
existential
the
crisis
senators
for the House.
refused to
Exactly.
accept
It's
that
the
excuse.
Save the House
As
fund.
they should.
But then, your
As
car
the state
breaks
librarian,
down, you spend a
Lucas
little
is
too much on
ultimately
groceries, you've
responsible
got
for the
bills
public
piling up.
funds his
So what
agency
do?
distributes.
You raid the roof fund.
Regardless of whether
You
the
take that money,
subcontractor
pay off your
dissolved.
credit cards,
Exactly.
and tell your
So
family, hey,
Senator
don't worry, we'll
Perez
fix the roof
issued a
later.
strict 7-day deadline for Lucas
the
to
roof is the
produce
planet,
the missing
or at least
invoices and
Maryland's climate
receipts.
goals.
So what
And the
does this
car
all
is a
mean for
massive,
you listening right
self-inflicted
now? Why should you care about a tense
$1.5
budget hearing
billion
in
state
Sacramento?
budget
It is a
deficit.
good
A completely
question.
avoidable
Because
deficit,
this strikes
I might
at the
add.
core
Welcome
of the
to the deep
trust
dive.
between taxpayers
Today
and the
we're
government.
exploring a classic
Yeah, when public
case
money
of
is
fiscal
allocated for
sleight of
something
hand
as
coming
crucial
out
as
of
children's
Annapolis.
education,
We are looking at the
strict
Strategic
oversight
Energy
isn't
Investment
just a
Fund,
political talking point.
the SAFE.
It is a fundamental
It's a huge
requirement.
pot of money
It is the
meant to
only
save the
mechanism we
environment.
have to
But it's
ensure
turning
your
into a
tax
hidden
dollars
tax on
actually
every single
reach the
person
kids who need
paying
them,
an electric
rather
bill
than getting
in Maryland.
swallowed up by
It
bureaucratic
really is. It's
middlemen
become the
and
center of a
private consulting
huge
firms.
political fight.
And we can actually
You've got
measure
a
the
Democratic
real-world
governor,
impact of that
frustrated
mismanagement.
environmentalists making
We just
some
have to
very
look at how
awkward
the state finally
compromises,
intervened.
and conservative
Right.
critics who
Eventually,
are
other
rightly
state
calling
officials
this whole thing a
realized
shell
this
game.
grand
A shell game.
experiment was
And when you
failing
look at the documents we have
spectacularly,
today,
and they pulled the
reports,
plug.
budget
They shut
proposals,
down the
critiques
strong
from
reader
Senate
partnership.
Republicans,
It is
and
really hard to
initiated
unsee
a
it.
massive
Our mission for this deep dive
clawback.
is simple.
They
Clawback
follow the money.
Always follow the
$36.9
money.
million
We are going to see
in
how a
unspent
fund
funds.
And they
designed to
recovered
fight
about
climate change is being
$3.86
used
million
to plug holes in the
directly
state
from
budget.
the nonprofit itself.
And we'll dig into the
So hitting
argument
that
that
emergency
this
break
isn't found
allowed
money
the
at
state
all.
to
This
essentially
is
hit the
essentially
reset
a backdoor
button.
tax
They
on
reappropriated
families.
the bulk of that
Let's
money
get right
directly
into
to
it.
the Dollywood
The Strategic
Foundation.
Energy
Finally
Investment Fund.
doing
It sounds
exactly
very
what the
official,
original
very
legislation
important.
intended.
Better
What does
late
it
than never.
actually do?
True.
Well,
And the
on paper,
staggering
it is
contrast
the
in results
state's
between these
green
two
piggy
organizations
bank. The SIF
perfectly
is managed
illustrates
by the
what
Maryland
happens when you
Energy
empower
Administration.
experienced
Its whole
experts
stated purpose
versus
is to reduce
inexperienced
energy bills.
bureaucracy.
Let's
cut
break
waste,
down the
and
actual
fund
statistics
renewable
because the
energy.
numbers tell
Like
the
solar
entire
panels
story.
and efficiency upgrades.
Exactly.
While the state's
But here
Strong
is the
Raider
real aha
Partnership
moment
was
of the
managing the
story.
program, they distributed
Where does the
exactly
money
one
actually come
$5,000 grant
because they aren't
to
just
a local
taxing you
partner in
directly
Yolo
for it.
County.
No, and
One
that's why
single
politicians
grant.
Now
absolutely
compare
love
that to
it.
the
It feels
Dollywood
free.
Foundation.
So about 40%
Once they
comes
finally
from regional
received their
carbon
$25
auctions.
million portion
But the
from
big
the state,
chunk, the one growing
they
like
hit the
crazy,
ground
comes
running.
with something
Oh, they
called
took off.
alternative
In
compliance
just a
payments.
6-month period, they
or
distributed
ACPs.
Which is just a fancy government term for a fine.
Right.
36
It's a fine for failure.
over
Let
half
me
a
break
million
it down.
bucks.
Yep.
Maryland
Furthermore,
law
they
forces
enrolled
utility companies to buy a certain amount
new
of green
children
energy.
into the
They
program.
have to prove they're using renewables.
$500,000
But if they can't
flowing
find
to
that green
children in
energy,
6
or if it's
months
just way too
compared
expensive
to
on the
one
market, single
usually is.
$5,000
the state gives
grant
them
from
an
the
escape
state's
hatch.
hand-picked
The utility can just
organization.
pay a fee
It
directly
really
to
puts
the
the
state
failure of
instead.
that initial
That fee
pivot
is
into
the
perspective.
ACP. It really does.
And here's the
And if we
kicker.
connect this to the bigger picture,
Utilities are
it shows the
increasingly just
massive
paying the fine
opportunity
because
cost
it's
of
cheaper than
administrative
actually buying
mismanagement.
the
Because the
green
cost in
energy.
this scenario
So
isn't just the missing
climate fund is getting
$650,000.
incredibly
No,
rich.
not at all. The real
Precisely
cost is time.
because
Yeah.
the green
Every
energy
single
mandates
month,
are
the
failing.
state spent
Precisely.
arguing over
It is a
unauthorized
completely
middlemen,
perverse incentive.
setting up money
The government
market
made
accounts,
the mandate
tracking
so
down
aggressive
missing
and
receipts.
the market is so distorted
That was a
that
month
power
that
companies
thousands
are
of
just writing
toddlers
checks to
missed
the
out on
state
early
instead of going
exposure to
green.
books.
And the
And the
stats
research
on
on
this are
early
just
childhood
staggering.
development
They
is
are.
clear.
In
Early exposure
2022,
to reading
this revenue was
dramatically improves
$77
literacy
million
rates, and
by
in
teacher academic
2025 it
success.
jumped
It
to
is vital.
$365 The first 5 years of a child's life are
Wow.
absolutely
From
critical
77
for
million
brain
to
development.
365
Missing
million
out on
in
these
3
books
years.
isn't
Right, so
just
now
a
the
minor
state has
shipping
this
delay for a government
massive
program.
accidental
Right, it is
pot
a
of gold.
missed developmental
It's supposedly
window
for
for
green
those
projects.
kids that you cannot
But remember,
easily
that
get
money
back.
didn't
Which
just
explains
fall
why
out
the
of the sky.
lawmakers
The
were so
utility
furious.
companies paid those
The
funds.
Imagination Library was
And do you
designed
think
to be a
those massive
simple, highly
corporations just
effective
ate
way
that
to
cost out
level
of the
the
goodness
playing
of their
field for
hearts?
children,
Oh, absolutely
regardless
not.
of
They pass
income.
But
every
instead,
single
a
penny of that on
straightforward
to the
mission
customer.
morphed
Exactly,
into a
it shows up
complex
right on
accounting
your
nightmare.
electric bill.
So to
you,
summarize where
the
this
everyday
massive
ratepayer,
literacy
are
project
paying
stands
for the
today,
utilities'
the good news
failure
is that
to meet
millions of
of dollars
mandate.
were ultimately
The
saved
state
by the
collects your
state's
money,
clawback.
The
drops it in
government
the
finally
safe and
bypassed
says,
their
look
own
at all this
failed
cash we have for
nonprofit,
the climate.
handed the
Which
reins
brings
over
us
to
to
the
the
experts
raid.
at the Dollywood Foundation,
Because that
and the
money
books
is
are finally
definitely not
flowing.
staying in
But
the
a dark
climate fund.
cloud
Not
still
anymore.
hangs
Enter
over the
Governor
program's
Wes
history.
Moore.
The
His
mystery of the
administration is
missing
staring down a projected
$650,000 remains
$1.5
unsolved.
billion
It does.
budget deficit.
State lawmakers are threatening
1.5
contract remedies
billion.
if the receipts do not
You
appear.
can't just ignore a whole
They might
that
take
deep.
aggressive
You can't.
legal action
And when
to force the
government
return of the
overspends
funds.
to that degree,
The
they
clock
start
on that
checking
strict
under the
7-day
couch
deadline
cushions for
is
loose
ticking,
change.
and it serves as a
Except here,
stark
the couch
reminder
cushion is the
that
green
good
energy
intentions in a
fund,
legislative
and the
bill
loose
do
change
not
is
automatically
hundreds of millions of
guarantee good
taxpayer dollars.
execution
So
in
what's
the
the
real
actual
world.
proposal? How
This
much are we
whole
taking?
ordeal
The
raises a
governor's
much larger
plan
question,
diverts
about how
$292
governments
million
operate when they attempt to
directly from
adopt
the
or
SIF
scale
into the
successful
state's
private
general fund.
initiatives. Just to balance
Yeah,
the
and we
books.
want to leave
Just
you
to
with
cover
a
their
final
overspending.
provocative thought to ponder
They
on your own.
are using energy
when a government
fines to
steps
pay
in to
for
scale up
general
an already
government
successful private
operations.
charity, does the
Bureaucracy,
sheer
salaries,
weight of public
office supplies,
bureaucracy
you name it.
inherently
But that's
invite
not even all of
financial
it.
mismanagement?
I read in the
Or is
sources
this
there's
simply a
also
rare
rebate
case of a good
scheme.
idea
Yes,
executed
this is the
poorly by a
part
few
critics are
specific
calling a political
individuals?
sweetener.
about how
They're
many
grabbing
other
another
public-private
$100
partnerships
million
might be hiding
out of the
similar
fund
accounting
to give a
gaps in the fine.
one-time $40
Just like that
rebate
wedding
to
venue
eligible
insisting on
households.
building a new
$40.
kitchen in the parking lot.
$100.
So let me
You
get
have
this
to
straight.
wonder how many
The
other
state
state
mandates
programs are
drive
busy
up energy
reinventing
costs.
the wheel with your tax
The utility
dollars and
companies
losing
pass those
receipts along the
massive
way.
costs